Welcome to episode 123 of How About Them Huskies. As always, I'm your host, Connor, joined by just Andrew today, no Matt, but it's March, Andrew. The UConn Huskies, if you're unaware, have been pretty successful in March over the past couple of years. That started on March 1st, Saturday, with a win over Providence at the AMP. They won 75 to 63, a game they were in control pretty much the entire time. There was one dude that stuck out. I'm going to let you talk about him first. I feel like you know exactly where I'm going there. This overall great team win. A lot of guys stepped up, had big games that we really needed them. I feel like to have big games, like Alex Caravan, he knocked down a couple threes. Diarra looked really good distributing the ball, but I'll also kick it off with we don't usually do player of the games after this as a podcast, but I mean, pretty self-explanatory to say who the player of the game was for this one.
And this isn't just a player of the game. We were just talking before this. You said that this has happened 16 times in the history of college basketball or something insane like
In
that.
in the last 20 years, but still,
Okay,
it's less than once a year.
20 years history, same thing. But yeah, like you said, as our friend John Rothstein says, there are people that are making vacation plans for this month. Please pray for them. Anyway, Tarris Reed, he hasn't been talked enough, I feel like, this year. And if this game's not going to get him any talking points, then I really don't know what is. He might have to save people from a burning building because he had 24, 18, and 6 blocks. And it wasn't just to, get to the foul line 12 times and get points off that. It was a dominant 24 points and 18 rebounds. A couple of plays, just he made it just look so easy. He went up against Kreese, Essendoko, and Oswin Arunse, who are both pretty good. They're not just your kind of average Joe centers. They are both pretty good ball players, and he just made everything look easy. And it just was masterful to watch, honestly. And I feel like it's kind of been a wild card. Michigan fans, when he had come here, were like, oh, yeah, look at you guys. You just went from a back-to-back national championship, and now you're stuck with this kid. Maybe, the coach at Michigan, whoever that could be, was not actually a good coach. And it's crazy what happens when you come and play for the best coach in the country. But I mean, Tarris has just been working his butt off all season. I'm so happy that he finally is starting to at least get some of the recognition he deserves.
Yeah, that stat line, I got it from Bobby Mullen, the UConn SID, his Twitter. 16 times in the past 20 years, a player's had at least 24 points, 18 rebounds, and 6 blocks. Two of those 16, which I guess now is three of those 16, were Huskies. Adama Sanogo did it. I'm pulling up the tweet just to see. It doesn't say the game, but I'm going to see if I can guess the game based on the tweet. It was in
I want to
22,
guess too. I want to
1,
say
112, 22.
112-22. Good Lord. Okay. This was after his insane performance against Creighton.
It was.
Yes, it was. Okay. So January 12th, it had to have been the game after Creighton, right?
This was this is actually pre-podcast. I'm just realizing we weren't talking about this at this point.
Oh, wait, 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 wait. Oh my God, this isn't after Creighton. I'm thinking of the wrong year.
This is
Ooh.
the game that I was thinking of. And I don't blame you to click off the video because we're already not talking about the Providence game. But
I
this
don't
is
know what it is.
it was the Julian Champagny game, the
Uh,
overtime game
the one I
at
was at. I
Gampel
should have known that.
was the one you were
Man.
at. He had that stat line, and then Hashim Thabit did it as well. I that was sometime when he was playing. I'm not gonna make you guess the game for that one. My point is, going back on track here, Tarris Reed dominated in a way we haven't seen from him do before, and he's had a lot of really big games, like that Memphis game, yeah, that Xavier game when Sampson was out. Even as of late, he's been really solid, but to take over a game on both sides of the ball, I mean, 6 blocks. If you were to tell me someone on this team would have 6 blocks, first of all, I wouldn't believe you in a single game. But then I'd say, I guess it has to be Samson Johnson, 'cause Terrace isn't known as being that great of a shot blocker, but he just every time they went and sat on him, he also didn't foul. He had one foul compared to 6 blocks, which is very impressive. Just overall dominance. And he did end up playing 32 minutes. Sampson limited to just 7, which I mean, I don't blame Hurley for not playing Sam as much because Terrace is dominating the game. But I feel like Tarris Reed, I don't think, and there's a whole, I see on Twitter people arguing with each other about who should be the starter, which is so silly at this time of year. We're focusing on winning games, but I feel like even if he comes off the bench, our best five of Diarra, Ball, Caravan, McNeely, and Tarris Reed, I'm not sure. I'm very confident. I'm trying to think of how I'm phrasing this. I'm very confident with that five going. It's pretty much any other five in the country come tournament time. And we have guys like Sampson, Jalen Stewart, Ahmad Noel's emerging as that eighth guy. Is he playing well? Not really, but I feel like he's been the first guard off the bench the past few games. But I'll take those five guys over pretty much any other team in the country, which is very confident to say, I feel like. But I mean, with those five guys and the coaching staff behind him, I feel like this team could make some noise no matter what seed they are in March.
Now, if you've been watching us since we first started, we've been doing this, what, it's 2.5 years now almost. We've said plenty of times, if I were the starting lineup, or if I were the head coach, I would change the starting lineup to this. I think the starting lineup should be this. At the end of the day, this isn't new stuff. Like, we're not going to see a lineup change unless something completely drastic, like an injury, happens. Dan Hurley doesn't switch around the starting lineup. And the starting lineup doesn't necessarily really matter in terms of the grand scheme of the game. It obviously matters. You have to put five guys out to start. But you see something in this game, if you showed me a stat, or not a stat, a box score, and said starter only played 7 minutes, I would have had to have gone with the fact that he got injured, because there wouldn't be an excuse for a starter to only play 7 minutes of a 40-minute game. But when you have Tarris Reed off the bench, there absolutely is. So I don't really think that the whole argument about he should start is really needed, because it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, he doesn't start. All that really means is he doesn't do the opening tip off, which I'd rather have the more athletic Sampson do, anyways, to be honest. If he doesn't start, he's still going to be out there in the important moments of the game. It's not like you have to have your starting five out there for the end of the game. You can mix it up. You can go the hot hand, which has been Tarris Reed over the past couple of weeks. But highlighting some other guys, I mentioned Alex Caravan, 17 points, 2 of 4 from deep, 5 rebounds. He looked like the Alex Caravan we expect every game. We don't need him to knock down 5 or 6 threes like we have seen him do. We don't need that from him with this team to win. We're fine with him going 2 for 4. McNeely, 14 points, 2 of 5 from deep. Solo ball was in some foul trouble in the first half. Only played 4 minutes in the first, but he still finished with 14, hit 4 threes. I feel like every game he's a lock to hit 3 threes at least. He's done it over 20 times this year out of 30 games. So it's pretty much a guarantee Solo's going to add to the stat sheet there. Hassan Diarra, I mentioned, he looked pretty good. He had 10 assists, which is, I'm pretty sure, the most he's had in the game since he really got injured. He had a good stretch, I believe, like right around Christmas time, maybe a little after, heading to the new year, where he was getting near double digit assists every game. He's back to that with 10. He had 8 in the first half. He's looking healthier, which is going to be really important for the upcoming game against Marquette, which we'll talk about in a few here, and for the obviously postseason. But yeah, not much bench production outside of Tarris Reed.
No, and I feel like that's kind of going to be the issue, I want to say, going into this great month. We have a really good starting five with McNeely back. First of all, it's great to see Caravan kind of back to his usual self. We know he can be more than that. He is better than what he was on Saturday, but it's nice to see him kind of getting back to where he was before the disaster that doesn't need to be mentioned. But in terms of the bench, I feel like there's got to be a conversation with four people, three people. And those people would be Jalen Stewart, Jaden Ross, and Aiden Mahaney. None of them have really played meaningful minutes for the Huskies in March and in the tournament. And I feel like it's kind of going to be not necessarily completely up to them, but they're going to play a huge part in this tournament. You can't have zeros up from all of them and expect to win a March Madness game. We're not a team that can rely on every starter scoring 15 plus. That's just not the team that we are this year, and it's fine. But I just feel like as we get deeper into closer to the tournament and in the Big East tournament, these guys kind of got to get more consistent. Even if it's 4, 5, 6 points from each of them, that's still 15, 16, 17 points that'll add up quick. So I'm not saying every bench guy needs to put up some crooked, insane number every night, but it would be nice to just get a little production for them, even if it's just 2 or 3 points at the foul line, even just a little something more from the bench would be fantastic.
Aiden did get to the foul line. He missed the front end of the 1-and-1, but that's the point I was going to make too. it's one thing to have guys that can play, but like when you're doing nothing on the floor, I'd almost rather them not be out there. Like Mamad Noel, I was about to say Isaiah Abraham because he's actually in the box score for once, so I got distracted by his name. Ahmad Noel, Jaden Ross, and Aiden Mahaney, all of them did not score. None of them took a shot, and Aiden was -3. Let's see, Jaden Ross was -2. Ahmad Noel was -7. So they're not taking a shot, so they're not scoring. And when they're on the floor and they're very limited combined, what, 12 minutes, they're minus on the box score. That can't happen. I feel like the least we ask is from the bench is to at least keep up with the other team. We're not asking, like you said, we don't need them to score double figures, but we need a guy like Mahaney to knock down a big three or just get to the lane and get to the bucket, get to the basket like he's done. We've seen him do in like that Xavier game a couple months ago now. We just need something else. We can't rely on our guys. We had what, four? We usually have four guys playing 35 minutes plus in Diarra, Ball, Caravan, and McNeely. In the center, it's looking like Tarris Reed's going to be playing around 30 minutes a game. Is that sustainable? I mean, maybe, but I just feel like it's annoying that we're talking now on March 3rd about the bench still being an issue because we were talking about the bench being an issue on December 3rd and probably even November 3rd. There were question marks. It's just the reality, I guess we have to accept that we're not going to get much, but I feel like the least we can ask for is competitiveness because for guys to be -7 in their 3 minutes, it's just not great.
Yeah, I mean, there's just got to be a little something extra there. You think of both championship teams, and I know we dwell on this, and people have said, don't compare teams, but, Nahim Aline wasn't pouring in 10, 12 points a night. He had a couple mid range shots and maybe a three in all those tournament games. Calcaterra was good for a couple of threes. Hassan Diarra didn't necessarily score much, but made great plays on the defensive end of the ball. I feel like you need more of that than anything. Just bring energy when these guys are out. When you get into March, especially for people who didn't sniff the floor during March, there are starters out there. They're going to tell that these guys are new to March. If we get deep into the tournament, play these teams full of veterans, they're going to be able to sense that there's new flesh in the water, and they're going to be able to pretty much just take off with it. So I just feel like maybe not a whole conversation, but just an inside realization that there's just got to be more. Because if we get stat lines like this in March, we're not going to go very far.
And my last point on this, Hassan Diarra is playing hurt. Has he looked better? Yes. But could at any point it go from better to extremely bad and worse and say he can't play? Yes. What do we do there? I feel like there's no clear answer for a lead ball handler, which is just unfortunate, but it is what it is. Last thoughts, I guess, on this Providence game. I mentioned Isaiah Abraham, his 3 month vacation was off. He last played in that UMES game on November 30th. Got back into action March 1st. Good to see him on the floor. Did commit a foul on the Providence walk-on to net him his first career point. So positive there for Providence. But I said one last thing. I did want to touch upon Providence and get your thoughts because this is a team under Kim English that just, I mean, I hate to be rude, but they're just not a good team. They did play us very close at Gampel, that was 2 months ago now. But I'm looking, they had one player finish in double figures. It was Jaden Pierre who shot 3 of 9. There's just, they built this team around Bryce Hopkins being healthy. And when he's healthy, he's one of the best players, not just in the Big East, but in the country. They built this team around him being healthy, and they're not. And he's not, I should say. And there's not a clear lead option out there. Like Jaden Pierre, leading scorer. I mean, he was their leading scorer when we played them back in January. I don't know if he probably still is by average their leading scorer. But I mean, they have a bunch of guys that can get you 9 points, like Wesley Cardette, Ryan Mila, 8 points, like Oswin, Justin Fernandez knocked down a couple threes. But you have those guys all playing 20 plus minutes. I mean, look at our bench. I feel like Aiden Mahaney would play, in his current state, would play at least 20 minutes for Providence. I feel like Jaden Ross would probably play 15 minutes. I feel like Noel will get out there. It's just, I'm surprised Providence has fallen as quickly as they have. Obviously, they lost Cooley, but it's just, maybe it's just a rivalry thing, but I'm really surprised that they're not. I mean, I figured they wouldn't make be a tournament team, but to be, what, 3 or 4 games under 500 now, it's just surprising.
Well, obviously, what happened with Bryce Hopkins is terrible. You never want to wish that on anybody. Injuries are easily the worst part of sports, but in general, I feel like this year when it's all said and done, I think the Providence athletic director is going to kind of look at this as a complete whiff from the Providence coaching staff in general this year because trying to build your team around one guy is not how you win championships. Championships might be a little steep for a team like Providence, but even making the tournament, building around one guy isn't going to get you there. You look at our back-to-back teams. We had three NBA guys in the starting lineup on the first one, and then the two guys in the starting lineup that weren't in the NBA came back and started and won back-to-backs, and we had obviously four NBA guys in that one, and the one is still playing. So you can't expect Bryce Hopkins is easily when healthy a top three or even two player in the Big East, but you can't expect to win a whole bunch of games when you build a team around somebody who you honestly probably didn't even know was going to be healthy. It was a wild card all year, I feel like, until they officially announced that he was out for the year, if he was going to play or not, because he had that BYU game where everybody was like, holy crap, is Providence actually going to be good? And then he sat the rest of the season. So I feel like it's kind of a big time coaching error. And I feel like Kim English is definitely going to get some mirror time. But Kim English is a very good coach. And as much as UConn fans, such as ourselves, aren't fond of Providence, we can admit Kim English is a very good coach. I think the way that he ran the program last year after the whole Cooley thing to kind of get all the players' minds off that was very good. But Providence will not be the team that they were this year next year. I'll tell you that right now. They're going to be a lot better and a lot tougher to beat because they have a lot of great players. Oswin Arunze, if he stays, is really good. Obviously, we mentioned all the guys off the bench that have sparked them, but I mean, yeah, it's definitely disappointing to see Providence not as good this year because they are our rival in the Big East. But yeah, I just think that in terms of this year, just a massive kind of coaching error, coaching whiff per se.
Yeah, they have a bunch of seniors, but if Kim can keep the core together like Oswin, Rylan Mila, not sure how much eligibility Justin Fernandez has, but he's a guy that can knock down two or three threes in an instant and be instant offense off the bench. If you bring them together, go back in the portal, like they got some solid pieces. Like Bensley Joseph from Miami, Wesley Cardette was balling out at Chicago State. They got some really good pieces. Jabri Abdur-Rahim, who's also out for the year. The game after he hit 7 threes at the Garden against St. John's, he's out for the year. Another injury bug there. It's just they had the right vision, I feel like, but building around the question mark was never a good idea. But that's enough Providence talk. I'm glad we did because I like talking about the Big East. But we'll shift to another Big East team, and arguably, I've said this a lot, this is the biggest game of the season for UConn. You win, you more than likely avoid St. John's until the Big East championship game in the Big East tournament. Huskies hosting now number 20 Marquette, a late start on Wednesday night at Gampel. What's your thoughts going into this one, Andrew? Because obviously we it kind of caught me off guard when we went up there without it was still without Liam. That was his last game he missed. We went up there, turned the ball over 25 times or so, and came out with a win.
I feel like this is going to be a game where people are officially back in or completely out. I feel like there's no other way that this game is going to go than people are going to realize the ones that jumped off the ship are going to try to jump back on, or there's going to be a lot more people jumping off the ship because this is a huge game. Obviously, Marquette's very good, but they have never played in Gampel Pavilion on a true road game since we rejoined the Big East. Every game has been at the XL Center. Don't get me wrong, the XL Center is awesome. I love it, even though it gets a ton of hate. I love it. But playing in Gampel is different, especially on a Wednesday night. Students are going to be there and everything, so it's not going to be a mad crowd. That place is going to be jumping from the start. And I feel like I've said this a bunch of times, but this is going to be a huge momentum game because of a stat that Connor brought up, obviously, in our pre-show meeting, that we have not won back-to-back since when, Connor?
The second game was that Marquette game. We beat DePaul the game before that, but it's been a month until this Georgetown Providence stretch. So hopefully the Huskies are back into a groove, but we'll see.
I mean, that's kind of hard to believe, honestly, that it's been that long. But anyway, this game is more than just a regular season game. I mean, I don't want to, at this point, write off the Seton Hall game because we kind of did last time and it came back to bite us. But this game is one that you cannot lose no matter what. We've already dropped a couple in front of our home fans. The big one, obviously, that comes to mind is the St. John's game. Very disappointing loss there, but we can't drop this one no matter what. This has to be a game where you just have to win. And I feel like I'm going to honestly jump into my matchup to watch because it has a lot of the explaining. It's Stevie Mitchell and Hassan Diarra because Hassan Diarra is going to probably, I feel like he's going to be charged with guarding Mitchell, who did not have a good game against us last time. So he's going to be looking for revenge. But if there's one person I want on him, it's someone like Hassan Diarra, who obviously is not completely healthy, but is definitely trending back up. He looks like a completely different player than he was a couple of weeks ago.
I am going to look in the front court. I did consider going Hassan Diarra for my matchup to watch. He also could guard Cam Jones. There's definitely a lot of great Marquette guards. I agree, probably Mitchell, but Cam Jones, I feel like Diarra has to be very impactful. It's going to be a game where even if he wasn't injured, you're still going to see a lot of him. But I'm going to go big man. I'm going to go Tarris Reed for my matchup to watch against whoever they throw at him. Ben Gold, they have Royce Parham off the bench. Marquette's strong suit is not their big men this year. Ben Gold is a solid offensive player. He can knock down threes once in a while. He did not score. In fact, his only stats he had in our game back in February, he took two threes, missed them both, had a steal, and everything else was zeros across the board in 21 minutes. Royce Parham played 20 minutes, had 5 points. He also did have two turnovers, though, and three fouls. We've seen Tarris Reed kind of dominate front courts lately, and more notably front courts that aren't that great. I mean, look at Georgetown; they were without Sorber. They just had Drew Fielder, who's solid in his own right, but he played like 15 minutes and fouled out. And then Providence, Oswin's going to be a very good player. He is one of the best freshmen in the conference now, but him and Creasy Sandago, I feel like Terrace is much better and proved that having his best game of his career. I don't think Tarris Reed should be scared of Ben Gold. Maybe that's just me saying that and being confident in Tarris, but the role he's on right now, I feel like Ben Gold's not a defensive first guy. Tarris, I'm not saying we need to have 24, 18, and 6 for the second straight game, but I almost would be surprised if he doesn't get 15 and 10. That's pretty much what he's done for the past almost 3 weeks, probably more 2 weeks. But I feel like Terrace is going to be the main reason we win or lose this game based on how he performs, which probably wouldn't have been the case. You'd probably be a little surprised if I said that earlier this season. But that's just the role he's grown into. And now we can. Oh, you
I
can
was
go
going
ahead.
to say that's going to lead right into my player to watch, which was him. Um, but I mean, man, there's not a lot more to say because you covered everything. But he obviously shouldn't be afraid of Ben Gold. But is this a game where we maybe see the two-headed monster come back? I don't know. I feel like it kind of depends on how the game's going, but I feel like he's going to have another really good game against this team, and I feel like he's kind of going to have to. If he gets those boards like he did against Providence, this game's going to be easy.
Yeah, sorry for stealing your player to watch there. But to your point, you just made Samson Johnson in the last Marquette game. He played 27 minutes to Terrace's 13, and Samson 13 points, 4 of 4 from the field, 5 of 5 at the stripe. Terrace 6 points, had 3 buckets off the bench, so both were impactful. They combined for 19 points. I feel like even though Samson played more in that last one, I feel like we're going to see more Terrace just because that's what we've come to expect as of late. But my player to watch, who should I go with? I am going to go with Solo Ball because he only played 21, 22-ish minutes in that Providence game, still scored 14 points. And if you remember the Solo Ball game that happened earlier this year, it was that Marquette game. He hit 7 threes. He had career high 25 points, 11 rebounds, a double double. I feel we're not going to see another double double out of Solo Ball. I mean, it's possible, but just he's not that great of a rebounder. He just had a great game. But I just feel like this could be a game where he hits 5 threes and hits some big ones to get the Gampel crowd going. This is the second to last home game of the year, the biggest home game of the year. You win this one, and I don't have a true percentage in front of me. You have a 95+% chance, I feel like, to get that 3 seed and avoid St. John's until the final. So I feel like Solo is going to be very impactful in doing that, but this is just a game that you really need. If you lose this one, I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, I'm still confident in us against St. John's, but it's I mean, I feel like you'd agree it's definitely ideal to avoid them until as late as possible in the Big East tournament.
Yeah, the thing with St. John's now is they've won the regular season title. They've kind of taken the reins of being the best team in the Big East. But the question is, how are they going to perform in a place they haven't been in a very long time? Obviously they're a very, very good team with Patino, experienced coach, but experienced coach doesn't necessarily mean experienced players. Unless I'm completely wrong, I don't think anybody on this St. John's roster has played in the NCAA tournament. I don't believe, unless Lewis was somewhere else, I don't believe that any of these guys have played in the NCAA tournament.
Lewis was at UMass, so no. But
Yeah, I was gonna say
Zuby was at Kansas, but if he played, it was in like
it
a
was
3 or 4 minutes off the bench. But yeah, your point, no one's played any major minutes to my knowledge.
which obviously isn't gonna make me when we make our brackets. It's not gonna make me go, oh, St. John's. None of these guys have played first round exit. That's not how that works. They're still a very good team who plays very well together, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they do in terms of the postseason play. I'm still pretty confident they'll go far, but even in terms of the Big East tournament, you don't know what's going to happen with them. Are they going to let off the gas a little bit, or are they going to hold on? I really don't know. It's kind of just time will tell, honestly.
Yeah, we're gonna get deeper into St. John's and all the Big East teams when we do a Big East tournament preview that's coming probably fairly shortly after the end of the regular season, either later this weekend or early next week before the tournament kicks off. But you got any last thoughts on this Marquette game?
No, not on the Marquette game, but I do definitely want to talk about one more thing.
I think I can guess what that is, but
Yeah.
I did save something for last. You want to just jump right into it? I'll let you go.
I mean, yeah, we can both go, but obviously we like to on this show we like to check in on our guys in the pros. Everybody's balling out right now, but there's one in particular that's going to win the Rookie of the Year most likely. Our guy Stephon Castle, who has been balling for the San Antonio Spurs, who are now without Victor Wembanyama, which is kind of a blessing in disguise, I guess, for the Castle Rookie of the Year sweepstakes. People all over the app are saying that it could have gone to this person if they didn't get hurt. Well, they got hurt. So Castle is going to more likely than not, very deservingly win this award. But we got another weird stat, and Connor, I'll let you say this one because I don't even know if I'm going to be right if I say it.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I have no fact checkers, but I believe the source that it said. The Oklahoma City Thunder, who Castle played against with the Spurs, this was last night. It had to have been last night when we're recording this. The Thunder hadn't allowed a player to score 30 points individually in a game since December 23rd, before Christmas. That's 2+ months, 2 months in a week. Castle did it, the first guy to break that streak. It's really impressive. I saw he went 4 for 10 from three, which he never took more than 4 or 5 threes in a game with the Huskies. It's not his strong suit, but for him to have that confidence to shoot the three ball, I'm really excited for what the Spurs have going on. Obviously, Wemby's out right now, so they're not building that chemistry up with him, De'Aaron Fox. They have other great pieces. They're going to have high draft picks. They have the Hawks pick along with their own. Maybe Cooper Flag? Imagine Coop, Steph, Victor, De'Aaron Fox. You can throw me out there as the fifth guy. I think we'd be pretty okay.
Yeah, I'm a Celtics fan. Us being from the Northeast, I'm a Celtics fan. But if there were a team that's not the Celtics that I'd want to see succeed, it would be the Spurs because I like Wembanyama. You can have your opinions on him, whatever. I like Wembanyama, obviously Castle, and then I really like De'Aaron Fox too, and whoever they pair up with. Probably, unfortunately, Connor, I don't know if Greg Popovich would give you the nod over Jeremy Sohan, but maybe the Wizards would. But I love seeing all our guys succeed, but Rookie of the Year is going to be huge for the program. He's going to get a lot of recognition, and it's going to be a tough look for the UConn doesn't produce any good pros crowd because that's somehow still a thing.
I also saw that clip, and I don't know the context, but you saw the clip too. Steph ripping the ball out of Zach Edey's hands during a jump ball, reminding him what happened in April with the national championship. Cool to see. But a couple more. I'm just pulling up box scores. This is from tonight. Donovan Clingan, 13 points and 13 boards in a win over the Sixers. Not a great Sixers team, but still a double-double. He was in the starting lineup, had 3 blocks. Tyrese Martin, he's been playing well. He got I don't know if we officially said on this podcast, he got a full NBA contract, so really cool to see that happen. He had 23 points 2 nights ago now in a loss against the Pistons, his second highest scoring game of his career outside of that 30-point game against the Suns earlier. Just cool to see guys, especially like Tyrese. You don't I mean, I knew he had talent, but especially after he like got out of the league for a couple years, I didn't expect him to really come back. And he's not only has he came back, he's averaging 8 points per game playing pretty much every night.
I'm thrilled to see that because he was one of the guys I feel like that was never really, I don't know what the word is, but he was such a good, tough player for us. And it was kind of sad to see him kind of just drift off into the sunset after these guys made teams over him. He spent time in the G League, kind of bounced around a couple different teams, but, it doesn't really matter. He's not trying to win games. He's trying to build his resume. And if he's going to average probably close to 9 points a game, he's going to be a bench piece for somebody. If it's not the Nets, it's going to be somebody. So he's going to be in the league for a good amount of time, and he's absolutely earned his spot. He was not necessarily a household name for college basketball fans in general, but I mean, he's really proven that he belongs. He's proving what we as UConn fans already know, which is that he belongs in the NBA.
And my last point, then we'll finally end this podcast. Sure, the Nets aren't great. The Spurs, they've started good, but they're falling off a bit. The Blazers aren't great. So you're seeing all these numbers by these guys. They're producing, but they're not winning. Who cares? I mean, these guys are proving themselves. If Tyrese Martin got a chance from the Nets, sure, the Nets are probably tanking for Cooper Flag or a top lottery pick, but other 29 other teams are seeing Tyrese Martin have great games and see he can fit in the NBA. Even if it's not on a great team, they can maybe mold him into being a player that plays on a great team. Obviously, Steph and Donovan are in different situations. They're not going anywhere from their current teams unless it's via trade. But I'd rather Donovan put up 13 and 13 and lose the game as opposed to, hey, the Blazers win, but he plays 3 minutes backing up DeAndre Ayton. Maybe that's just me looking at it from a UConn perspective. I mean, obviously, somewhere down the line, you want to see these guys compete for championships, and they will. But right now, when they're developing, I'd rather see Steph Castle put up 32 in a loss than what he was doing earlier last month, playing 15 minutes, barely scoring, and the Spurs win the game. That's just my opinion on it. I feel like I prefer to see the Huskies do better as opposed to the NBA teams win. That's really weird to put it, but I think you got anything else? I think we could finally wrap up. One last thing.
Yeah, I'll kind of piggyback off that for not too long, but I 100% agree. I'm not saying that I don't care if they win because I'm gonna root for those teams to win, but at the same time, I would much rather see these guys producing on not great teams than see them rotting on the bench on good teams. Even guys like Cam Spencer have gotten into NBA games this year. The Grizzlies are good, but he's still gotten in. So I would much rather see these guys because how else are they going to prove themselves if they're not playing in games? And honestly, being drafted by bad teams is kind of means that they're good enough to be in that position. So I'm really glad to see all of our guys producing, but it's not going to be the last of it. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely more to come from all of those guys and the guys we send in over the next few years, which that number is just going to continue to grow. But as for episode 123, how about them Huskies? That'll conclude it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Next time you hear from us or listen to us, watch from us, however you consume our podcast, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify. Hey, I'll give you guys a challenge. If you usually watch on YouTube, listen on Spotify next time or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get it. If you're I'm trying to think of the word. I almost said video. But obviously, that's not. If you're a Apple or a Spotify person, go to YouTube. Check us out. See what we look like if you've never seen us. We do have Matt usually as well. We're all pretty handsome fellas, I'd say. But yeah, so I challenge you to mix it up, but also still watch the YouTube video, if you know what I mean, to get those views up because we love seeing you guys support the video, support the channel. It really means a lot. But yeah, I'm going on and on here. Next time you hear from us after this Marquette game, where we'll be talking about fingers crossed a UConn win and a 3 seed in the Big East tournament. I mean, if we lose, we'll still talk about it because there's a lot to go over. But yeah, I've rambled on this ending a lot. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.